This is episode 7 of Building in Public, a weekly series where I sit down and go through all of the lessons I've learned in life and business over the past week in the hopes that you can take these bite-sized bits of information and apply them for yourself or your clients. Let's get into it. All right, so for those following along at home, last week I mentioned there was one client on the fence that was going to either close or disappear on that Monday because I'm not a pushy salesman, and very, very thankful to report that we are now at 8 active clients. So again, I'm always so grateful that someone trusts myself and my company to bring their visions to life and hopefully generate tens of, if not hundreds of thousands for them through our content. Again, I'm reminded the power of referrals is so understated. And I think if you can focus more on customer satisfaction than client acquisition, you will just by default build a larger client base. So sometimes it's easier to make the experience better than get more stops, if that makes sense. We also have one lead that is currently on the fence again as well. So this may take us to 9, but I'm not a pushy salesman, and they're currently in Sydney. So I'm not going to push until they're back in Perth. And when they do, I will update this number and we'll see where that is. But for now, 8 is where we're at, and 8 is an incredible number because once we hit double digits, we are probably at capacity for myself in a full-time role, and we'll need to definitely look at bringing someone on in a part-time or contract capacity. So exciting, truly, and allows me to really also start focusing on the other business I'm building, and that maybe ties into what I'm currently building. So I'm currently building my personal brand, and to have a really reductive look at different type of business models, I think you could distill it down to 2 different styles. You're either building a business to sell, or you're building a business to support a lifestyle. And for myself, when I started, not only was Stay a While the most accessible, but it was also the easiest to enter because it required no social proof of who I was, just the abilities that I could perform within a certain role, such as creative director, account manager, creative, lead gen. All of those roles boil down to a founder. But there was no responsibility or desire for me to step into a world where I was client facing in a influential way, if that makes sense. And moving into this new offer and service that I want to do, it's becoming more and more apparent the importance of having an audience attached to my own brand that I can leverage in the coming months. I've been in this industry for almost a decade in some capacity, whether that be a photographer, whether that be a creative director, or even running my own company. And the truth is, I've never prioritized putting myself as a key person of influence. I've always focused on just performing the best I can in the role I was in, and that never required me to be anything more or less. However, as I'm starting to approach this new undertaking, this new company, I think it's important that I distill some social proof in my online presence by building a larger following. So although followers are no metric for how good you are in anything, it is unfortunately a baked in, superficial, fleshed out metric that brands, customers, clients look at as almost like a reference for how good you are. I have 1,100 followers on Instagram. Yet over the last 2 years, my agency has helped generate over $6 million for e-commerce brands in the direct-to-consumer space. We have helped scale an activewear brand from 5 figures a month to 7 figures a month. We've also launched TVCs that have gone along to air in some of the biggest commercials and TV shows in Australia. And I say that not to brag, but to highlight the disconnect between achievement and recognition. The achievement happened. It was the work. The recognition, well, I didn't document it. I didn't put it out there. I didn't make a post about it. I did nothing with it. And because of that, there's no social proof. And the business I'm trying to build is essentially distilling all of that information over the last 2 years into a community course, some type of service. But the problem is not my inability to build it, but the bottleneck of selling to an audience organically that already exists. So starting next week, there are going to be 2 additional components to these videos in the hopes of building that audience. Number 1, there's going to be a segment now dedicated specifically to the growth of my channels that we focus on. So for me, we're going to be focusing on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. I'm going to break down exactly the strategies and the content I'm using and how they perform. So that way it's just very clear and honest about how it's going. And 2, a secondary video on this channel that is going to be more, I'm going to say vlog style, about the actual ins and outs of what I do on a weekly, daily basis, working with clients, photo shoots, strategies, Facebook ads, everything. These are done in the hope of demystifying whatever process these gurus try to hide behind paywalls, and just be really honest, this is something I have no idea how long it's going to take. I'm going to set a goal of 3 months. 3 months to get to 10,000 followers across all 3 platforms. So that could be 5 on here, 5 on TikTok, and that's it. Or it could be 2.5, and then 5 on the other. So whatever that is, this is my accountability. In 3 months' time from this date, how did we go? Oh, this is gonna be weird to watch back. So on the weeks that we secure a new client, I'm not gonna go through wins of the week, because that is a win. Someone has committed to working with us, the biggest win. So let's just go straight into the learning of the week. We're going to be talking about competitor analysis, and honestly, the biggest things that everyone gets wrong about this, and the main thing that is actually going to work every single time. Let's start with the biggest mistake that brands make, which is copying without context. Brands like Allbirds or Glossier, they have specific strategies tailored to their audience that they know so well. And if you were just stealing their ad creative and their ad copy and pasting it to your audience in the hope that it may connect because you sell a similar product, you are very misled. And it's not your fault. All these people online are telling you to just find brands that are doing what you're doing and copy, but that is not the case. You see, the biggest lever to pull, I'll explain at the end, but it is not this. So avoid, when possible, copying without context. The next thing that everyone gets wrong is looking at surface level data, meaning likes, comments, views, all of these superficial metrics that you have no idea what was actually the intent of the content. And using free resources like Facebook Ad Library, or even paying for a software like Foreplay, will allow you to see the objective they were trying to achieve with that content. Obviously, if there's no money behind it and it's being posted organically, you can assume that their objective is not sales, because there is no direct click through to a website. So it would be overall brand awareness or engagement. However, focusing on those metrics without understanding what the objective was on the content is like trying to understand where a plane is flying in the sky with no context of where it's going. To keep it really simple, understanding the function of their content is more important than the measurement of their likes. Let's talk about what actually works now, and that's finding the gaps in their strategy, not just copying it. So I'll explain. If you find that there is a common thread between brands like Sephora, Drunk Elephant, Mecca, like skincare, beauty brands, and you see they're all heavily leaning to one side of the market, that is not necessarily a reason for you to just jump on and copy that content. They may be missing something. I know you're thinking, why would a brand like that miss out on this idea that I can think of, you know? No idea is bigger than one company. So don't be afraid to test these ideas and see if they work. And if everyone is doing UGC, unboxings, get ready with me, go the other way and test it. There could be an entire market going through the ingredients used in your product and making informative, value-driven content that separates you from the rest. It'll allow you to create a unique audience segment as well and establish yourself as authority in that niche, rather than trying to fight with everyone else to just be another UGC, get ready with me brand. This is a bit of a sneaky one, and I don't really know many people that are doing this, especially agencies. Only my clients really implement this as hard as we can, and it is a crucial part of our strategy. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to go to your competitor in the space, and I want you to look at their reviews, and I want you to find their worst fucking review. I want you to then find any common themes within these poor reviews. Is it customer service? Is it shipping times? Is it quality of product, packaging? What are they failing at? You see, this is a golden opportunity to find exactly what your competitors are doing wrong. It is much easier to improve something that is broken than repair something that is working. And sometimes these brands that you think are bulletproof are failing at the most fundamental things. And if customer service is getting slammed because all they're doing is talking to AI chatbots, but you're a brand relatively new to the game and you can afford to have manually, you being on there responding to people, that human connection, you've just won that battle. Finding as many of those shortcomings that these other brands are just too big to worry about and dominate the fuck out of it. And I promise you, That is your edge. Competitor analysis in a nutshell is meant to teach you how to adapt what is and isn't working in the industry. It should not be causing you to lose your brand's identity or values. True competitive advantage comes from focusing on your brand's values and finding these niches and pockets that the big brands are missing and dialing in and being the best in the world at them. So I want to start including resource of the week, or resources, depending on how many we have. And these are just free links down below. They require no emails or lead gen kind of sneakiness. These are just things that I've either listened to, read, consumed that I think actually provide real tangible value for you guys. The first one is a podcast episode. It's the 505 podcast with Daniel Priestley, talking about scaling creative entrepreneurship, and truly the most practical podcast, that I've listened to in a very long time. That flows on to the second resource, which is Daniel Priestley's book itself. It is Key Person of Influence. This guy was talking about being a founder-led business 20 years ago. Since then, he's gone on to sell companies, build teams, and he works with some of the most high-profile influencers and creatives that you are probably following. So if you want a little insight onto how that all works, I could not recommend that more. And finally, to just wrap it all up, let's go through the creative of the week, which is actually a commercial you may have seen air on Love Island Australia if you've kept your eyes peeled. And the reason it works so well is the hook, obviously just pouring red wine right onto a blanket, huge. But also the other reason being is it breaks the fourth wall. And I think most brands get caught up in UGC being direct to camera and more premium style content, not really breaking that fourth wall. I encourage you that if you can, call out your audience that is watching in a way that feels authentic and honest. It will have a huge cut through in view time and click through rate. Imagine a call to action that is spoken to the audience rather than overlaid with text. So look, that is episode 7. Again, I absolutely am loving this, and I'm loving the comments, and all of this is amazing. I love you all. I'll be here next week. It's going to be a big one. I'll see you then.